Rental maintenance tasks may be a chore, but completing them properly each season will protect your investment. Preventing structural damage, saving energy, keeping the property systems running properly are all benefits of attentive property maintenance. So think about it. You feel good when your rental properties look good, it serves the tenants well, and your property values are protected. Welcome to your Landlord Resource Podcast. Many moons ago, when I started as a landlord, I was as green as it gets. I may have had my real estate license, but I lacked confidence and the hands-on experience needed when it came to dealing with tenants, leases, maintenance, and bookkeeping. After many failed attempts, fast forward to today, Kevin and I have doubled our doors and created an organized, professionally operated rental property business. Want to go from overwhelmed to confident? If you're an ambitious landlord or maybe one in the making, join us as we provide strategies and teach actionable steps to help you reach your goals and the lifestyle you desire, all while building a streamlined and profitable rental property business. This is your Landlord Resource Podcast. Hey there, landlords. Welcome back. This is Stacy, and I'm here with Kevin.
Hey, everybody.
We're here today to talk to you about spring maintenance for your rental properties. We are going to cover both single-family homes and multifamily. You might find certain parts don't apply to you right now, but if you plan to scale your portfolio, a lot of these points might come in handy down the line. Obviously, winter can cause a multitude of problems to structures. The reason for doing these inspections is to identify and remedy issues that can be very expensive if they are not addressed. Unless you're house hacking, you may not even realize that there are issues, and spring is a great time of year, right after there's a lot of wind and snow and rain and big temperature changes. That's a good time to evaluate your structures and make sure all is well. It's also a good time to reevaluate a few of your business-related issues. So towards the end of the podcast, we're going to cover that as well.
Okay, well, let's do first things first, what we do before we even start the inspections. Like anything we do, we want to communicate with our tenants. So we let them know when we're going to be up there and why, even though we're outside and for the most part not going in their units, because we want them to feel that they're a part of this. And they actually are, because they can give us, if they've noticed anything, a lot of times from leaking gutters or raised sidewalks or things that have happened during the winter, they're a good source of information so we can start off on the right foot. The other thing that we do, we always have our contractor. We pay to have him come and do the inspections with us because we can see a lot, but I think we've mentioned in a previous episode, he's trained. He can see the issues that we can't see. And on top of that, he can take care of some of them right that same day.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them he can take care of that same day, or we can schedule them at another time. But getting back to talking about why it's important that the tenants know you're on property, especially if you're in a single family home, if you're going to have to be going into the backyard, if they have pets, things like that, you want to make sure that the pets are put in, or that they're aware that you're going to be on the property.
Exactly.
Yeah. So let's start with exterior inspections. Let's talk about the roof.
Oh boy.
So what you're looking for on the roof is you're looking for missing or lifted shingles or, anything like that can allow water to penetrate or pests to get in, and they can create nests, and also moss can build up. Often yards in rental properties are small, and tenants can't really see what's going on up on the roof. All it takes is a big storm with high winds to lift a couple shingles. So grab a ladder and get on up there and look for loose shingles, and also look at the vents and fireplace caps and check those out as well.
A little aside here, we had a family member that was having a leak in their property, and they didn't know where it was coming from. It was just outside the kitchen. And so we went over, got on this was fun, a rickety old ladder, and it was a pretty steep roof. So I got up there, was checking things out. It turned out it was the fireplace cap. And the funny thing is, I yelled down to Stacy, "Oh, it's the fireplace, doesn't have a cap on it." She goes, "There's no fireplace there." And well, she was partially right. The fireplace had been taken out years ago. The chimney was still there. And long story short, the fireplace cap wasn't there. With the wind and the rain was going down. It was leaking in. It was coming down one of the walls in the kitchen.
Yep. That's exactly what happened. That was a fun afternoon because I'm like, yeah, you can get up there. Just get on the ladders, climb up, no big deal. Yeah, getting up was easy. Getting back down on an extension ladder from a steep roof wasn't so easy. So maybe we should leave that to the professionals.
Exactly. The next thing we want to cover when you're on the roof or close to the roof, you want to make sure the gutters are clean. Now, that's something you're, of course, going to want to do in your fall inspections because with winter coming, you don't want them clogged and overflowing. But after a long winter, they get just as filled or as before. You have wind, you have leaves, and just the guck and the mire. And you don't want to leave that, even if you don't have a lot of rainy seasons. It's going to sit there. It's going to cause rust. It's going to wear out your gutters well before they should. And if you want to maintain them, but another option would to do gutter guards. And when you have gutters, you can have them permanently installed. And that helps greatly.
Yeah, we did that on the Chico house when we had the roof done. We did all new gutters. And it was funny, Costco was selling them. They weren't very expensive.
No.
We picked up, they told us how many we needed. And they said, hey, you grab them, we'll put them in. It didn't take much at all. And they have been in. They've never blown away. And it's made a huge difference because now we really don't have much maintenance that we have to do to those gutters other than the downspouts.
Yeah, well worth it.
Yeah.
The other thing you want to do when you clean the gutters, you want to put your hose down the downspouts, flush them out. Because there's a lot of stuff that can, even if the gutters look great, there's a lot of stuff that can be stuck in the downspouts themselves.
Yeah. So we had a few years ago, we get a call from a family member who has a rental and they're out of town, and the tenant gave them a call and said, hey, the garage, which is a separate piece of the property, it's a detached garage, has a flat roof on it, is filled with water on top. And
yeah, it was coming over the sides.
Yeah, it was blowing over the sides. And so she was concerned. So she called. And so we go down there to go check it out. And it was, again, pulled out the extension ladder. Kevin crawled up there.
Well, that wasn't bad. It was a flat roof. I'll take those anytime.
And we couldn't figure out what was going on. But obviously the downspout was clogged. And this is one of those roofs that has a downspout inside the roof. So there's no gutters to this. So it's just a hole in the roof that goes directly into the downspout. And apparently what happened was there was a large liquid umber tree, and they have spiky balls that are like the size of a golf ball. Mm-hmm. And it had gotten stuck down in the downspout with a bunch of leaves. And over time, the water wasn't draining. And that's what happened. So I get up on the ladder and I hand Kev a hose. Mm-hmm. And he shoves it down there as far as he can, and we crank that puppy on, and it started to back up, and then all of a sudden it just let loose. And of course, I'm standing at the bottom of it. It got soaking wet, but anyway, that's just a.
And the other thing on there too, while I was up there, it wasn't causing any of the backup, but there were some trees hanging over the back parts of the roof, and they had dropped a bunch of needles and branches and. So it was a good time just to go up there and sweep them off, because at some point they were going to make their way down to that corner and clog it that way too.
Yep.
So just keep ahead of this. You're doing it now instead of when it's rain pouring on you.
Yeah, exactly. And just like roof shingle, loose siding can allow water to get behind it. Eventually you're going to have some dry rot there. And loose siding is where termites had got in and caused us thousands of dollars.
And that is a story for another podcast.
Yes, it is.
That'll be a good one.
We learned a lot.
We did.
Yeah.
Learned a lot of lessons, not just in regards to pests. So looking forward actually to that one.
Yeah.
The other thing you want to check is window screens. This is a good time. A lot of things can happen. during the winter or even before, and you want to check for any rips or holes. It allows pests, anything to fly in. Those beautiful summer nights when you have the windows open, you don't want, little buzzing friends coming to visit you at night.
Yeah.
So a couple options here. If they're small, you can do where they have screen tape, and that works fine. And what we've had to do a couple times when they've kind of too big for that, take it down to your local hardware store. They can replace the screen, and it's very cost effective.
Yep.
So
way cheaper than buying new ones.
Exactly. So that's that. The next thing we want to talk about is very important, are decks and stairs. Now, this is very important because this is a huge safety issue.
Yep.
Now, the first thing you want to look at is how it's the wood treatment. A lot of times the staining, the coat you can put on, they typically last, stays about 5 to 6 years.
Yeah,
something like that. So you want to do that to protect the wood, but even more important, you want to check to make sure they're in good order. No dry rot.
Cracks.
No cracks, yeah. And if there are, you might want to hire a professional to take a look at this, because this is the railings, the boards, the concrete footers, all of this are very important. You want to look at the stair treads. Make sure the nail heads or screws aren't popping up, that there's a tripping hazard. You want to make sure that there's no cracks or dry rot in the posts, and place special attention to the railings. Make sure they're not loose. Anything over 6 feet.
I think that's the standard. Yeah.
Yeah. But so this is not just from, visually you want it to look nice and have a nice stain on it, but especially in a safety issue, it's huge.
Yeah. And of course, state of California, a lot of regulations. They recently, I think it was 2018, passed a Senate bill, 721. It's also known as the Deck and Balcony Law. And it requires a special inspection from an outside source to verify safety of all exterior raised decks, balconies, and stairways in rental properties that have 3 or more units. I think it's important that it's noted that the reason that this all came about was because in Berkeley, California, is it in the 90s?
Yeah, maybe somewhere there.
Yeah. 6 college students died when the railing on the entire deck. Collapsed. And that was because it was dry rotted and the landlord needed to replace it, did not. And there was no regulation. No one's checking these decks after they're put up. So that is why that whole deck and balcony law came around. Even though you're not in California, many states are going to follow suit and start passing similar regulations. California landlords, we did write a blog all about this bill and how it affects you, what you need to know to pass inspections, and when your inspections need to be completed by. I believe 2024 is the clock really starts ticking. There is going to be a link in show notes for that blog that we wrote. The next thing we want to talk about would be driveways and walkways. So after you get a lot of water, ice, things like that, you need to make sure there's no damaged or lifted areas that are going to be tripping hazards. If you find a lifted or collapsed area, like from tree roots or ice or water issues, get some neon paint or reflective tape and mark that area so other people will notice it too. It gives you a little bit more time to process the issue and get it remedied. It's a good idea to send out an email to your tenants letting them know as well, and do everything you need to do to cover yourself in case someone falls. A judge is going to be a little bit more lenient if they find you work to keep your tenants safe rather than if you just took pictures and vowed to get back to the issue later. And your tenants are going to appreciate the notification as well.
Exactly. And here's where you want to evaluate the lighting on those pathways and outside areas. Yep. We have motion sensors. A lot of people do. You want to make sure they're in working order. The path lighting is in working order, and even kind of aim the right way. During the winter, things can be pushed out and aimed in different directions. So you want to keep up on that.
Oh, the other thing I wanted to note that I forgot to say was that when you have a lot of rain but not a lot of sun, moss builds up and creates a slippery surface. So you need to make sure you're power washing that as well. get rid of that so people aren't slipping.
Exactly. This is also a perfect time to check the exterior air vents when you're checking your walkways. They can be blocked during the winter, leaves, branches, even sometimes furniture is pushed up against them.
Yeah, we have tenants who have used the overhang to protect things, and they'll lean things up there, not realizing that they're covering them.
And that's why you want the good airflow. You don't want the moisture to build up under the crawl space. That's why those airflows are there.
Right. And some air vents also allow carbon monoxide to escape. So you want to be really careful to make sure that those are always cleaned and open. You don't want that building up and backing up into the rental property at all.
Yeah, very important.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about sprinklers and water lines. So if you have sprinklers in your rental property, do a test run, make sure all the heads are intact, spray patterns are going towards the plants and not the sidewalk, which we definitely have problems with. Also look for broken lines that can cause excess water to gather or flow to the street and not go to the plants. Open your water spigots. Make sure that you want to clear those lines out and make sure that there's no water that's dripping from inside the wall or anything like that. If you've used protective sleeves to keep the water lines from freezing, which would prevent cracking and things like that, you want to store those away in a safe place so you have them ready for when you're getting ready to do your fall maintenance.
Yeah. You also want to check branches that some of them have broken off or are about to break off. You want to check them around the property, that they're not blocking windows, overhanging. A good example is our property up in Chico. We have a apple tree in the corner, and it's great, but it tends to grow right over the corner of the roof there.
Yep.
So that constantly needs to be pruned or trimmed off, not just for safety, but we've noticed when we have had some little pest troubles up there, and he pointed out that they would use the branches to kind of crawl and get on to the access to the roof and then sometimes into the attic. So, and it's a lot easier in the wintertime or springtime too, because there's not a lot of leaves on them right now. Right. A lot easier to trim trees.
Yeah, you want to, especially the fruit trees. I was going to mention that later, but I'll say it now. Especially the fruit trees, you want to get them before they start to flower. Yeah,
that's a real good point. The next thing you do, you want to walk the fence line. Really important. And as we record this, we're looking out the window and, with the wind and rain, we see a post that, that's going to have to be done.
Let's just say our back fence is waving to us.
Yes. Yeah. But it's real important to do that now because it's not just, falling down in the wind or the rain. You want to make sure there's no holes or openings. You don't want a tenant, if you allow pets, their dog, or conversely, a neighbor's dog coming into their property. So you want to, that's an important thing to check off your list. A lot of times it also takes a strong wind to take down a whole section of the fence. Our neighbor across the street, that just happened a couple weeks ago.
Yep.
So once again, be proactive.
Yep. So if you have access to your attic from the exterior, which a lot of older homes do, so our house in Chico, that's the only way we can access it is through the outside. You want to head on up there and shine a flashlight in there. Make sure you don't see any standing water or any new water stains on the interior of the roof. Also, Kevin had a good point, is make sure you're looking at the roof and make sure you don't see any daylight coming through. That's a surefire sign you got an issue with your roof.
Yeah. A lot of times you can't see that from the outside looking in, but definitely inside looking out. And you're also looking for pests that have maybe taken up residence during the winter. We've had rats, birds, squirrels, raccoons.
Yes. Squirrels were the biggest ones, though.
Yes.
Not the biggest problem.
But we had them living in the attic, and in the case of the raccoons, they were kind of underneath.
Yes. The raccoons were under the house.
Yes.
In a different location.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure also you don't want pests up there, but primarily you don't want pests up there because they chew on wires and that causes fire hazards. Obviously, nobody wants.
We just mentioned the same goes for the basement spaces too. You're looking for water intrusion there, and you can tell when you go down there if it's musty or mildew. I mean, it's a basement. It's not going to smell the best anyway, but you can tell when there's been some moisture there and it needs some attention. And sometimes you just need a dehumidifier to keep the mold from growing. Fans sometimes too.
Get air movement on it.
Air movement, what we said before about the anything in the crawl spaces, any place, air movement is your friend.
Yep, for sure. So it's important to know that interior inspections are just as important, and we're going to touch on them briefly here, but we're going to do a whole episode on inspections. So that's going to cover a whole lot more. If you don't have access from the exterior, do a quick look in the attic. Check your windows, make sure there's no leaks or mold growing. So a lot of people tend to put dressers or furniture under the windows. And if there's a leak that's coming from that window, there's no airflow and it can cause mold behind that furniture. So just kind of do a quick peek behind there as well.
And this is where you can sometimes only see it from the inside. We had a window leak on the third floor window, and you couldn't see it from the exterior. Luckily, our tenant, because we trained them well, informed us that looks like there was a leak, there was some moisture, and we were able to go in, fix it. That one was an easy fix.
Yeah, it was.
But had it not, that could have turned into something major, dry rot, and once that sets in, you're looking at a big, expensive project.
Well, let's back up. It was an easy fix for us. It wasn't so easy for our contractor because he had to get up to that third story and reseal the window around it. You want to also check around the doors. Look at your floors. Make sure they haven't been damaged from the tenants that are dragging in mud and water and salt if you live in an icy area, or sand, however they do that. Check to make sure all the doors and windows open and close properly, and that the locks engage. A lot of times moisture can get into these old windows and doors, and safety is the number one for your tenants. You need to make sure those wood windows and doors can open in case of a fire. And if they are swollen or warped from wet weather, you may have a problem on your hands. So make sure those are in good shape. You're going to check your mechanicals as well. So you want to look for rust at the bottom of the water heater. Make sure air filters have been replaced in the heater and the wall vents. Check your appliances, things like that.
And here's an important one too, and a timely one, is you want to get your HVAC or air conditioner guy out here. If he can go on this inspection with you, that's fantastic, because he needs to get into the unit, because you just can't do it from the outside. You want to check the thermostat. You want to make sure the air is flowing well and it's cool enough, and they have the instruments that can do that. And it's much easier and in a lot of cases cheaper to have him doing the inspections or any fixes in April or whenever in early spring than in June or July. And all of a sudden, everybody wants the air conditioner guy there.
That heat wave comes and your AC goes out. Yeah. Good luck trying to get a guy out there to fix it.
The next thing, and this is more for single family, is if you have a chimney maintenance is essential. Every year, you should have all the components checked. The hearth, any connecting pipes, the chute, the flue. And you want to have it cleaned too.
You don't have to have it cleaned every year, but you should basically have a good eye on it.
Yeah, and it also depends on how much it's used. They can kind of give you an idea there too. They can also look for damage, which is very important. When they're checking the chute, they can look for any cracks in the bricks where smoke or can.
Yeah, anytime a house settles, we're in earthquake country here in California. Just had one this morning, actually. Mm-hmm. And it's the smallest little adjustment to the foundation can cause a crack in that fireplace. And you don't want they light a fire and they get it roaring and the flames go up and the fire can get in between those cracks.
And then also when they're up there too, they can check the chimney cap or the spark arrestor, whatever you call it. We talked before that not only for, obviously sparks going out for fire, but for leaks.
Yeah. Water. You don't want water in there. All right, let's talk about exterior spruce ups here. So whether you have a single family home or you have an apartment building, curb appeal is super important. You never know when your current tenants are going to be moving out. Make sure your rental property shows well. It's all part of marketing to new prospective tenants, that curb appeal. It also shows the existing tenant what a caring and wonderful landlord you are and it'll make them think twice about wanting to move out if they have a beautiful home, right? Yeah.
You also want to do some power washing. The exterior, even of the building sometimes, dirt and grime, that's an easy way. We mentioned it before, but on the walkways themselves, moss is sort of growing up. Your power washer really helps with that. If you provide patio furniture like we do with our units, you want to make sure the pads are all in good shape, wash them down, clean them. We had an outdoor carpet back there. Just kind of hose it down, wipe off the barbecue, anything that's outside. Just
get it all
kind of
set up.
Clean it up.
Yeah. Here's a good tip for you. If you have children, employ your teens to do this task while you work on other areas. And we wrote a blog all about tax benefits of employing your children or your grandchildren in your business. We'll link it in the show notes. So we had the youngest son up with us last year, and he did a bulk of the cleaning for us. I mean, he was washing down all the decks and to the entrances, and he cleaned all the patio furniture and the carpet and wiped down the barbecue. And
he did a real good job.
He did a great job. They can also plant flowers, because now is a perfect time to plant perennials and gives your tenants a beautiful front yard or walkway to come home to. It's this time of year where you want to do your landscaping. So you're going to do lawn aeration, you're going to reseed, fertilization, prune your shrubs and trees. And if you have flowering trees or fruit trees, like we talked about, or apple tree, this is when you prune them before they start to bud.
We talked about the lawn. Another thing we can do, we mentioned this earlier, but besides the aeration and fertilizer, you want to check your sprinkler system there, that it's spraying in the right patterns. Because a lot of times that's another, besides making your lawn look great, it's another expense if you're just watering concrete all day. And this goes without saying, but in the lease, you want to make sure who is responsible for the landscaping. For example, in our multi-unit buildings, we are, and that's usually the case. But when you do single-family properties, a lot of times it can fall on the tenant.
Yeah, that's true. So here's a tip. Have a discussion with your tenant before you rent to them. And if they don't have a desire or can't find the time to maintain the landscaping, offer to hire a landscaper for a fee. So say you have a person that charges $100 a month to come out weekly and mow the lawn, weed, and make sure all the standing weeds are cleared up. Charge the tenant $125 to offer the service. You would be managing the landscaper and earning an additional $25 a month. This is not rent. This is a fee for landscaping services. And if the tenant doesn't want to pay that, they can find their own landscaper. Other topics that should be covered in the lease include general indoor cleaning. For example, if your unit has hardwood floors, make sure you have it written in there somewhere that they need to properly and routinely clean those to avoid salt and water damage during the winter months. So whether you're referring to spring maintenance or year-round maintenance, it helps clarify all the responsibilities in writing when you put it in the lease agreement. And business-wise, there's office spring maintenance as well.
Here's a tip, your property taxes. If they have gone up, which a lot of times they do a little homework and check the sales comps in your area. In California, if we think the property value listed by the county is too high, we can contest it by providing recent sales comps.
Yep. Kevin saved my dad over $1,000 one year by doing this.
Yeah,
so that was
it's worth it. Doesn't take a lot of time.
No, it's not. It's filling out some paperwork, getting some sales comps, and turning it in. So as spring is also tax time, it's a good time to evaluate your income and your expenses. Hopefully, as your tenants renew or they turn over, your rental rates will increase. So with that increased income, you want to think about ways to increase your deductions or your expenses so you can pay less income tax. So as we mentioned before, employ your children or your grandchildren. There are huge tax benefits to this one.
Yeah.
Do improvements to your rental properties. Tenants always appreciate improvements. So that can be anywhere from, again, just planting flowers or getting new appliances or anything like that. So, and one other thing that I think we don't talk enough about is education, which is a very reasonable expense. Take courses and educate yourself. Take courses on fair housing. That's a really good one. Very important. And all landlords
necessary. You have to keep up on that. And they're changing all the time.
That's exactly right. Rental maintenance tasks may be a chore, but completing them properly each season will protect your investment. Preventing structural damage, saving energy, keeping the property systems running properly are all benefits of attentive property maintenance. So think about it. You feel good when your rental properties look good, it serves the tenants well, and your property values are protected.
Wow. So that was a lot of info.
Yes, it was. Have no fear. We've put together a simple checklist of the items we talked about today, and the link is in the show notes. We appreciate you tuning in. If you'd like the podcast link delivered to you, we include it in our free newsletter called Landlord Weekly. It's sent to your email each week and includes tips, early access to our blogs, landlord-specific articles from other industry pros, and products that we use and love. And we would love if you would subscribe. The link is in the show notes.
Well, I think that's a wrap for episode 3. Please subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast site. Tell your friends we're trying to get the word out to help DIY landlords. So, for my co-host Stacy, this is Kevin. Take care till next time.
Bye.